Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast, and we are your number one podcast, bringing you conversations around death, dying, grief, mental health, and all the things that come along with it with some amazing people who not only walk the walk, but talk the talk. And of course, this is a live stream event. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. But most importantly, if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversation that we have, please share this along with them. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to just say two things. First thing is, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. Secondly, this is for educational purposes only, okay? So now, without further ado, I'm going to bring on my next guest. Guys, help me welcome my guest, Joanne Mackie, to the show. Joanne, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Tony?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing amazing, especially after hearing your the way your morning went. I'm like, the movies and carrying on.
It was a day. It was a whole day. Yeah. Already it's been a whole day. So, but it's quiet outside now, and it sounds like they have stopped filming, and so I don't think we're going to have any loud distractions, which is excellent.
That's okay. I think people would, if we have Law and Order fans out there, I'm pretty sure they would love to hear how your day started.
Well, so, yeah.
Before we get into that, though, tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Okay. My name is Joanne Mackie. I am a licensed mental health counselor and trauma therapist. I'm licensed in New York, New Jersey, and Florida, working on Connecticut as we speak. And I specialize in trauma, and with trauma comes grief.
Yeah.
A lot of grief. Disenfranchised grief, things that never happened, things that should have happened differently, things that people deserved and didn't get to have. So sort of wrapped up in the conversation of trauma is so much grief.
Yeah. Now, explain to people how you got into this work.
Okay. I am, the word survivor, but I came from a very abusive home. So, my mom had mental health issues. She wasn't diagnosed, but it feels to me like she probably had untreated borderline personality disorder and was extremely abused herself as a child. That way, that trauma is passed intergenerationally. We got a nice handful of it from her. She had it worse, as it happens. So I experienced physical abuse, emotional abuse, a lot of neglect, sexual abuse, all of these different things. And honestly, my brain did the thing where it's like, oh, we're not going to remember anything. So I was sort of numbed out for a really long time. I knew that we had had a bad childhood, but my brain had forgotten a lot. And this is very common as well. With trauma, my sister remembers everything. I remember nothing. So I think of the two of us, I think probably rather remember nothing. So going through that, I had different jobs, in California for a while, here in New York. And I decided that I became very interested in personality disorders and in, sort of the ways that people are different in the world and the ways that shows up. And as I learned more about that, I became very interested in forensic work, which is, a lot of people think that, autopsies, right? Like that's the death stuff. It's not, it's the criminal justice stuff. So I majored in forensic mental counseling and worked with people who have been in the system, sort of trying to help them. And the idea when I started was to sort of try and help people adjust, right, to transition between being in the system and trying to live outside of the system and understand what had happened.
Right.
And then the commonality, time after time, is trauma. It is things that happened in childhood. And so my focus changed from doing forensic work doing trauma work. And that's kind of how I landed now.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. And you mentioned something, and it's one of the things that now is becoming a huge thing into the world, the reentry, right, from being in the penal system, and having to help people adjust to coming back into being amongst civilians, so to speak, right? Because there's a lot of look, they don't talk about these things enough, right? And there's not enough support out there to help those individuals come, re-enter the world and go, you know what, I didn't, I have nothing, I have nothing. Where do I start?
Right.
Sort of thing, right?
Right.
And then mix that in with multiple personality disorders. That's another thing that people never really talk about, right? Because a lot of people that are in the justice system right now that are incarcerated, a lot of them are struggling in different areas in their mental health and
A lot of
dealing with,
mental health issues. And then the
addictions.
trauma of being in
Right,
jail or in prison.
right.
Right. And that just, you can't come out better than you went in. It's not possible.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
not possible. So yeah, I mean, it was such an interest of mine. But again, I sort of moved out of that just when I realized that the commonality of people
yeah,
ending up in the system, right, is trauma, and particularly CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which I have. And now I'm not working in the system now. I don't work with people who have records unless they just happen to have records when they come to me. I
right.
work with people from all walks of life who experience the sort of disenfranchisement of trauma and the unrecognized piece of the sort of sadness, the consistent like feelings of loss in their system for things that they maybe never had or wish
Mhm.
they had. So it's really like this is a really valuable area, I think, and understanding the loss and the grief, which is what right? Grief,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, well, it's just like yourself, Joanne. It's. I realize that it's all part of the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Like when we talk about the different forms of grief, and the traumas, the addictions, the mental health issues, it's all woven into the same thing, right? And when we get into this field, it's what the things that stand out to us the most is pretty much the area that we begin to walk in, right? Because it's like a personal relationship with it, right? It just makes sense to us,
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
And so and then it opens up the doors to go, okay, look, we need to start to work on these things right here in order to get you to this place over here, right?
Right.
And that's the most painful thing. This you know this. It's painful. It's painful to have to go in and remember and ask yourself the main question: why are you the way that you are?
What happened to you?
Right. What happened to you? Right. Because sometimes look, yeah, and the brain is a very magnificent thing, but it's also complex as well. You know, it's designed to keep us safe. It doesn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't want to go back and be like, hey, you know what? You you was molested when you were younger,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
But people oftentimes take those traits, and it shows within their teenage to adult years, through certain things, I'm saying, that they may not even understand, like promiscuity, right? I'm saying, a lot of people don't understand that comes from something that you've already been conditioned to,
Right.
right?
Or the need for acceptance,
Mm,
the need
yeah,
for love, looking for validation because you never had it,
right.
right? So if you are sort of raised in an environment in which you are not emotionally met, right, where you are not seen and where you are not held and where you are not supported, we will seek that elsewhere and not recognize what we're doing, right?
Right.
It
Right.
takes a very long time to recognize the link between neglect, because it's not just the abuse, right? The abuse trains us to not recognize that it's strange. The abuse teaches us that we don't really know what love looks like. We don't know what relationships look like. We don't know when we're hurting ourselves. Nobody ever taught us,
Right.
you know. But the other piece of it is when you haven't learned how to be in a relationship, and when you don't know how to validate yourself, you will take any validation from anyone and take it as a way to sort of enhance your own self. See, I am beautiful. See, I am desirable. See, I am lovable.
Yeah.
Even though that's not what's happening. Right?
No, you're absolutely right. And as you were saying that, I started thinking to myself in the relationship to multiple personalities, right? Because as you were saying that, I was thinking, this is how people develop those personalities, right? As you looking for validation, right? Because you're pretty much, each personality represents an adaptation in your survival of said multiple relationships, right? In order for you to come out unscathed in certain areas,
Sure.
you become a people pleaser through those personalities.
Absolutely. People pleasing is a whole thing. People
Okay.
pleasing is the whole thing, and we don't. It's such a like phrase, right? That it sounds so bad, right?
Right.
And if someone said to you, "Oh, you're a people pleaser," I am not. I am strong and independent, and I'm not a people pleaser. Without realizing that people pleasing just means you don't want conflict, right? You don't want difficulty. That it's easier for you to take care of other people because that's what you've always done. To
Right.
stay safe, to stay safe. Dissociative identity disorder is a splitting that happens due to profound abuse at a very young age. So that's where that, what used to be multiple personality disorder, right? That is profound abuse when the brain is too young to develop what are really good coping skills for a child, right? Which is people pleasing and which is learning how to get very small and hide. But when you're too young, you don't know what to do. So you just break into like these other pieces that each have these protectors, right? They're hiding the wounded young one. So it's very interesting, but not what this conversation is about, I know. So
We're gonna open up the doors for all of that, right? Because it really makes sense and everything. And that's the beautiful part about having these conversations. They are conversations that should be had. So people have a better understanding of what that looks like, because there's people out there probably right now that are doing the same things. And what you just said probably just opened up the doors for them to recognize, oh shoot, Joanne's called me out. Right? You just brought that out to the forefront.
yeah.
And it's important that they can bring that out to the forefront so they know how to take the necessary steps to get the help that they deserve.
And
Right?
yeah, what people might experience is this like discomfort, right? So if somebody says something close, right, where it's like it's sort of tickling, like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't like what was just said. I don't know why, right? You can't race into this kind of healing, right?
No.
You can't re-traumatize to heal, right? But for me, right, so like, for example, I didn't really realize, right, one of the myriad ways that things were used against my sister and I's children, right, one of the things my mom would use was food, right? We
Yeah.
weren't allowed to have it without permission, even if we were hungry, right? So she would measure like the amount of milk in the carton so we wouldn't go get milk without permission. right? She would count the cookies in the cookie jar. And if a cookie was missing, we both got in trouble. So food was used, right? It was not just allowed. And you know, when you're young and you're just starving all the time, because you're growing, you need to eat way more.
Right.
I was in grade school. Again, I don't have giant numbers of memories, but I do remember going over to a friend's house after school, and she walked into the kitchen of her home, and her mom was there, and she just walked in and started to make a sandwich. And I got so scared because I was like, oh, you can't just make food. And she just made a sandwich. And I was like so scared. I didn't really understand why, except that apparently I learned that people are allowed to eat food when they're hungry.
Right.
It wasn't an honor or a gift. It was a necessity. So I was really scared. She's making the sandwich. She's like, do you want anything? And I was like, no, no, right? And her mom walks in and like ruffles her head, but like, hey, welcome back from school. And I was like, oh my God. She did not get in trouble. She did not get beaten for that. And then I realized that maybe my childhood wasn't in certain ways. So that discomfort, right? It's like I didn't know what was wrong, but that tickled me, like the back.
Right.
And I think sometimes when you hear something that is like a little bit like, I don't like that, right? When you hear something that maybe makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you feel a little seen, right? I think it's really important, if you feel, oh, that's a thing. I didn't know I was a people pleaser, right? But I am. I really do try to make everybody around me happy to stay safe. It's a whole, it's really hard, and it's hard to stop doing it.
It really is, right?
It really is, yeah.
Because we develop issues, right? So we got a chance to talk a good little bit before the show. I come to find out we both come from a Gen X generation. The generation to be seen and not heard, right? You know what I'm saying? The generation was told, hey, get out the house and don't come back till the streetlights come on.
And then only if you have to. Yeah.
Only if you have to, right? You know what I'm saying? And even then, don't come in the house and let my cold air out the house. I'll whip your butt, The things that we got in trouble for, some people would look at us and go, no wonder y'all messed up. Like, you're probably right.
We're better now.
Speak for yourself.
That's right. Fully. Yep.
Because there's so many of us out there right now looking at people going, what is that you're doing right there? Is that emotions? What are those?
Right? And if you are, particularly in Gen X, right, if you were emotional, then you're seen to be weak, which leads to, it's like it is not weak to be a person. It is not weak to cry. It is not weak to have feelings. But we weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to, right? And particularly if you come from a bad childhood, you really weren't supposed to. I mean, literally, like we couldn't have a cookie. You don't even exist in this house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you don't even exist. Maybe your neighbor will feed you because
this is true. And
will feed you, but it ain't me. Yeah.
and here's the funny part about that, right? Because when you grew up in the way that we did, especially with the parents that we had, when we were out there, they never once checked on us. They never once worried about if we was out there starving, broken up, or something like that. It was like, go out there and survive in the world, right? Don't be hanging around with us and things like that. As a matter of fact, we just don't want to see you, right? Yeah. And a lot of times, what they didn't know is that if we walked out, and this is when you realize that you had it good but had it bad in the same sense, because you could go out and find a quarter. And if you was anywhere that had penny candy or penny cookies, come on, you know what I'm saying. It's real. You can go to the store and the guy behind the counter, he never really counted the cookies. He just pulled out a bag and pretty much put cookies up in there, and you went out and you had fun with your friends, right? And survived off of junk food and you know what I'm saying, and running bicycles off of curbs, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so, you know, when we came home and our parents was like, you better sit down and eat. They didn't realize we wasn't hungry. Right?
I had 30 cookies.
What matter? It doesn't matter what I've been eating all day. I couldn't even come in the house and make a sandwich. Right?
Yeah, I couldn't even do that.
Water, you told us to drink out the garden hose. You'll survive, right?
Right.
So,
But
you know, some people be mad at us.
Right. And those, that forced to be little adults.
Yes.
We, there's and this shows up in a lot of ways. For some of us, we were even parentified. Right. So mom wasn't well, dad wasn't well, there was too much drinking, there was too much this, there was too much that. Right.
Yeah.
And in those cases, right, those kids not only have to parent themselves, right, but also have to parent their parents, have to make sure that their parents' emotional needs are met, have to support their parents instead of being the other way around. Right. Instead of being supported as children and being helped to grow. Right. Instead, we were doing the work. We were doing the work of the adult. And that creates an enormous sense of loss. There's a childhood in there that wasn't experienced.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I meant by disenfranchised grief earlier.
Right.
How do you explain that to somebody? Right. It's like I didn't get to be calm, or I didn't get to cry, or I didn't get to throw myself on the floor and just mama take care of me. It was the other way around. It's like, what do I have to do today to keep everybody in the house calm? What do I have to do as the 6-year-old to make sure that nobody's mad at me? What do I have to do as a child to make sure that I stay safe in the only place I can be right now, which is my house?
Right.
That's grief.
That is grief, right? Because that's grief of a childhood, right? That's grief in its rawest form, right? Because that's survival. Look, we got taught to survive, you know what I'm saying, the best way that we knew how, because once you got hit with a switch or a broomstick, maybe that cast iron pan and things like that, you knew that you didn't want to get hit by that anymore, right?
Not again.
And so, and then when you're in a family, and most of us grew up this way, you know what I'm saying, a lot of Gen Xers, and there's, a lot of us grew up in families that drank all the time, right? Every time we turned around, mom and dad, uncles, aunties, they were all drinking, right? They were all drinking.
Yeah.
My question to you would be, Joanne, did you ever take on any of those traits? Like, you know what I'm saying, when you got to a certain point in life and you and your friends are hanging out, like, hey, I got the bottle, right? You know what I'm saying? And y'all go out into the woods and be sitting back, make yourself like a little bonfire and started drinking. Oh, because it became natural, right? It's something that we mimic.
My dad was a big drinker, and then he completely stopped when I was very young. So there was no alcohol in the house. There was no normalization of that, right? We went the other way with extreme religion, right? So I don't even I know that everybody in high school, they were going to parties and dances and dating and doing things. We were not allowed to do that. So I remember being in high school, and it was the first time I actively remember having a drink. And of course we couldn't. So my best friend and I, we didn't want to get caught. So we would, this is such a weird story. Hey, here we go. So we would, it's so weird. It's hilarious. Well, we were just the goofiest kids. We would fill up a rubber chicken with champagne and go drink in the graveyard. There we go.
All right. Well, these things do happen. Go ahead.
A rubber chicken, for goodness sake. Because we were like, if a cop sees two teenagers sitting in the graveyard with a rubber chicken.
Yeah, I mean, I get that one.
Oh my
I
God. Isn't that
right.
hilarious? Oh my God.
Yeah, and there's probably people laughing right now, like, yeah, I remember, because we all have stories about Mad Dog 2020.
Oh God.
Everclear, right?
Oh
You
no,
know,
driving movies we don't remember.
oh my God. The good thing about it is that there's no record of the stuff that we had to go through. Or
I'm so
even
glad. Yeah, I'm so glad the rubber chicken will never show up on Instagram.
and if
Oh,
it does, I know who did it. Joanne. I'm gonna call it Joanne. Is that you? You put down the rubber ducky. Put it down.
awesome. I don't know. I don't even remember why. Like, how did that process? Here's what we'll do. We don't want to get caught.
You know,
Chicken with champagne.
I'm not surprised, but I'm actually surprised you chose the graveyard because
Oh no.
that come on now. The graveyard was the place that the night of the living dead would come back. The zombies would come and get you,
We didn't
right?
care. We were
And
fine.
you didn't care. Okay.
I didn't.
So
I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something bad, right? It's like I'm just being so naughty. It was, yeah, it was a whole. But I remember that as being one of the moments. But I didn't have drinking parents. I had my dad was in Vietnam. He came back not okay. He did
yeah,
3 tours. He did 3 tours. And he was not okay. He was very depressed. When in a time where you're a tough guy, you can't be depressed.
right.
You're not allowed to have the things that he saw were astonishing, just so bad.
Yeah,
But he was, he's boomer, and the therapy was not a thing, right? But Vietnam really messed with him. And my mom had been so profoundly abused for so many years that, she was unaware sometimes of the abuse that she was committing. She would just go red rage and didn't remember it. Both of my parents are deceased, which is why I can say these stories without them being on the phone right now. Like, what are you doing? Stop it. And that's another piece. The secrecy.
yeah.
The secrecy of trauma. Right? How long did it take you to start talking about the things that you had experienced in your life? Not just acting and reacting, but acknowledging and expressing.
It took me. I just recently started adding in or being very honest about the childhood molestation this year. Well,
Yeah.
end of last year, so I'm 50 years old now, right? And so you're looking at 43 years.
Yeah.
43 years of me keeping it to myself, right? Because wasn't sure how people would respond to it and things like that. And so one day, I was doing a podcast
Mm.
and something said, "Speak your truth."
Wow.
Right. But it was something that I kept to myself for the longest time because I was like, if I told people that I was molested when I was 6 years old, how are people going to react to that, right? You know what I'm saying? Now, there's a part of me that was going, you know what? Screw it. Because for one, I had talked to so many other dudes that it had happened to.
Yeah.
Without judgment. And I said, if they can be brave enough to talk about it, then I can too, right? What makes me different from those people? What makes me special enough not to talk about what I've gone through? If I'm going to do this work, I need to be totally honest with people, and I need to put it out there and do, you know what I'm saying? So everybody knows that not only does it happen to women, but it happens to men too.
Yes,
Why? Because it happened to me. I have a really good friend of mine, Joanne, Sean Wheeler. He is the founder of Starfish Ministries. This man was sex trafficked ever since he was 3 years old up until he was in his early 30s.
Oh my goodness.
Sex trafficked. Okay. I mean,
so sorry.
and he even from the time he was a child to teenage in his 20s up until the military. He was sex trafficked.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And he was one of the first people I had on my podcast when I first started podcasting. That man told his story. And I knew right then and there, he was like, and it was the people that lived in this neighborhood. It was the people that you know what I'm saying, that employed his family, that was over at his house all the time.
Yeah.
That was taking him out. Oh, don't worry, we got him. And they would take him out, and they would they would do what they needed to do and come back and drop him off like nothing ever happened. And they did that to him every day.
Terrible.
For over 30 years of his life. And that man can be brave enough to go out here and do something with that and understand, you know what I'm saying, that these things do happen to young men.
Yes, they do.
I knew I had to do it too, right? You know what I'm saying? Because he gave me the strength to go, because every time he talked about it, there was something that just clicked in me. It was just like, I don't know if I have the strength to do that. I don't know if I'm courageous enough to tell people that these things happen to me. I'm not, am I brave enough to tell people how afraid I was? Being homeless so many times. Like I recently started adding that in too, right? I used to tell people, yeah, I was homeless. And then I started being real honest. I said, no, you don't understand. I've been homeless over 20 times in my life.
That's right.
Not by choice, but by life circumstances. And the extent that I was homeless, right? Having to sleep in and out of trash cans, sleep behind dumpsters, break into abandoned buildings, breaking into people's cars when they went to sleep just so I can have a warm place to stay, or sometimes even just going out committing a little fraction of a misdemeanor so I can have a couple weeks in being incarcerated because I didn't want to be out on the streets. What about the times when I had to go and eat out of trash cans or wait for the guy at the donut shop to come out and throw the donuts in the trash can and go in there and grab the bag and run down the street, right? You know what I'm saying? Just so I can have a place just so I can have something to eat, right? These are the things that we don't talk about. You know just as well as I do. It's the secrets that we keep from people that leaves us, leaves us with the questions of, should I have said something? Because
what would have been different? What would have been different?
Yes.
Again, the grief of not knowing what your life could have been.
Yeah.
What could my life have been if I hadn't been told to shh?
Yeah. Hey, and the crazy part about it is everybody has that secret person in the family that when the kids go around him, the other people are like, hey, where the kids at?
Oh yeah.
Oh, what's that? No. Go get they know.
Oh yeah.
So I had to be part of that secret.
That's right.
And he went off and he did it to other people. Just like most of us who have been sexually assaulted, violated as a child. It wasn't like people didn't know.
No.
What we're doing right now
stranger danger thing.
People.
Yeah, stranger danger isn't the danger.
Right. It wasn't stranger danger, it was family danger.
Right.
Everybody had that family member.
And a lot of the families knew about that family member.
Exactly.
And still let the children into areas where they weren't safe. And that really happened. I don't think that's talked about a lot. Not just the abuse that happens, but this sort of the looking away of adults in the family who know that person is a danger.
Yeah.
Just being like, it's fine, we'll keep an eye on the kids. That is really common. And I don't understand how.
Yeah, and that's what we learned, that there's true predators in this world that prey on children, because we have been the victims of those predatory situations, and yet we was told not to say nothing.
Well,
don't go telling people that.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, all the abuse, right? Like a child who's being if you're being physically abused, you know very well by the way you're dressed before school that this is not something you can know. Why are you today wearing a turtleneck, long sleeves, and long pants in the summer? Why did mom or dad dress you that way? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What is
Mm-hmm.
the message there?
Don't show nobody. Don't talk about this at school.
All of
Right?
this, right? All of it. When you don't have, when you're dressing yourself in the morning and trying to make your own breakfast and trying to get yourself off to school on your own as a child,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you have become your own parent, you don't tell your friends that. Everyone
Yeah,
else's mom or dad or whatever is making their lunches and picking them up, and the families where those children aren't being held, right? Those
exactly.
kids aren't saying, yeah, no, nobody ever picks me up. I don't have food. I don't have anyone supporting me. Those, right?
Exactly.
There's so much implicit secrecy and what that does inside of a person, right? An
Mm-hmm.
adult, what it does to the adult that grew from that child is just so much emptiness and pain and loss
Yeah.
and lack of trust, lack of safety.
And they wonder why we have trust issues, right?
I know.
Why we have a hard time, being around people of authority because those were the same ones who misused us and
Mm,
abused, right? But then you realize, I'm glad that you brought up the disenfranchised grief because I want to add some more to that, like
mm,
two more sets of grief that no one really talks about. Because when you're a child and you're going through that and you realize that you're not the only one wearing that turtleneck, right? You realize that majority of the kids that you're around, they're
yeah,
all wearing the turtleneck. They're all wearing the long sleeves when it's hot, right?
that's right.
There's a communal grief there, a shared communal grief.
Yeah.
And as the individual child, there's contacted grief as well, because it's everything. When your mind says, I need to escape this reality, and you can disconnect and forget everything,
That's
that's
it.
compassionate grief, because now it's inside of you. And for many, many years, it has not gone anywhere. And then when you begin to act out, they're
Yeah.
quick to say, you need help. There's something wrong with you. And not even understanding that there is. It's compacted grief. It's disenfranchised grief, right?
Yeah.
It's displaced grief. Because oftentimes, instead of going after the people who did it to us, we want to point the finger at the people that didn't have anything to do with it. And those become the victims in our path of destruction
Mm,
of not being able to properly trust people
right.
because
I,
we're used to surviving,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you got the communal grief, right? Everybody knows what had happened to you. Ain't nobody saying nothing, but they grieving. I
Right.
can't believe you let him do that, but you're gonna let that person do it again.
Mm, that's the
Oh,
piece.
that's just Billy Bob, right? You know what I'm saying? That's
And
just Billy Bob.
you
He's
know,
got to be careful.
I think that there is like more acknowledgement now, right? That
Mm-hmm.
children are abused, and that if you see something, right, take the child aside and say, "Are you okay? I noticed that this, or you're sitting funny, or are you feeling all right, or you've been out for a couple of days. Is everything okay?" But for those of us who are older, nobody asked. Nobody asked. And we were afraid. I wasn't going to say anything to anybody because, honestly, I might. I mean, and it's weird to say it, but there's a possibility that I say something, I don't make it, right? And not me even like, and I don't have it in terms of fear for my actual life. I don't have that as bad as other people. But I knew that if I went to a teacher and I was like, look, man, and then that got back to my parents,
Uh-huh. That's a butt whipping that you don't want.
more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Not
told
only are you getting beat with the
me to
switch,
tell the secrets, yeah.
yeah, you can't tell the secrets. You got to get told to shut up. They're gonna look. If you're not being punched after telling something like that, that means that the parents have come to the realization that, what I'm saying, like maybe there's something needs to be changed. But we grew up with parents that said, hey, you wasn't supposed to say nothing at school. So instead, what I'm saying, now you're gonna have to pay because now those people are gonna come digging around here, right?
That's right.
You know who those people were. Welfare, right? You know what I'm saying? You know the oh no, they can't have that. Don't have those people all up in my business, right? You're just gonna put our business out there like that? Oh no, you gotta pay. So not only am I gonna beat you with the broomstick, I'm gonna beat you with the switch. I'm gonna put you out. I'm gonna teach you a lesson. I'm gonna have to beat you with the ironing cord. I may even hit you with the iron, right? You know this, right? And there's somebody right now listening to this going, and they're probably having flashbacks. So I do apologize for it, but you guys know that this is the truth, and it needs to be talked about. It needs to be brought out to the open. And the hard truth is that we're not okay. We're not okay.
Sure. You can get okay.
But yes, you can get okay, and that's the reason why we have these conversations.
And that is why that's why I do what I do.
See?
That is why I do what I do, right? I think that a lot of our fear and grief, all of these things, like they reside here, right? I don't have a lot of memories, right? I don't have a lot of memories. There are things that I know. I know, like I have a feeling of darkness and things when I think back. I don't remember everything. But I do know that when I started to understand, right, that trauma happened to me, not because of me.
Right. You're not the reason why the trauma happened, right?
That is so important. That's actually on my website. Trauma happens to you, not because of you.
Exactly.
So important.
Exactly.
Because we were taught that it was our fault.
And that's important for people to know, right? Because even as adults, right? Look how long it took. Look how long it took for us to begin to speak our truth about life in general, right? And talk about why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? But yet we talk about these things and we know these things instinctively, but we can't pinpoint where you came from. See, one of the things that I did when I really decided to say, you know what, I am messed up. I got trust issues, right? Why am I so violent? You know, why am I this? I literally started to break myself down because I wanted to be better. And you know, it took me having my son because I wanted to be a good man for him. And I didn't know how to be a man. I knew how to survive. I knew how to go out here and pick up a gun and rob people. I knew how to go out and sell drugs and things like that, right? You know what I'm saying? But no one ever taught me how to be a man. I just thought that I was supposed to man up and keep it going, but something didn't sit right with me. And I knew that after dealing with his mom, being in a narcissistic abusive relationship, that I wasn't willing to accept certain things anymore. And that's when I said, you know what? I have to fix this. I have to, and it wasn't even a matter of fixing it, right? So I'm going to use the correct terminology. I have to heal.
That's it. Yeah.
So I can be better for him, right? And so I can be a good role model for him. So I can set a better example for him. And I did. And that's when I began to, so one of the tricks that I learned to dream backwards.
What? What did you do now?
I learned to dream backwards.
Okay, explain that, please. What does that mean?
During the course of me wanting to understand where everything came from, I told myself, I said, when you dream, you're the most honest with yourself, right? You can't escape your dreams. You can't escape the things that have happened to you. But in order to do it, you're going to have to go backwards. You're going to have to remember everything from the time that you're right there and you decide that journey, every conversation, every person that you encountered, everything that has been ever done. You're going to have to be very honest with yourself, because the first time that you're not truthful with yourself, you're going to wake up and you're going to go, no, I don't feel right, right? Something's going to be displaced in you. And so I learned how to be honest with myself. Why am I this way? All of these reckless relationships that I've been in, all of these lies that I've told and things, I'm going to have to be honest about those, right? Why wasn't I the type of person, you know what I'm saying, this, that, and other? And then I started to get down to in my teenage years, and I would start to remember parties that I went to and got drunk. I started to remember the amount of drugs that I sold.
The
I started
discomfort of that. Yeah.
I started to remember the fights and things like that. And I realized that I was the one starting all the fights, right? You know what I'm saying? There are
Mhm.
times where I picked up a gun and had to rob people. I figured I didn't have to rob nobody. I did it because it was just who I was. Then it got down to the nitty gritty. I started to remember conversations with mom and dad and grandma. I started aunties and uncles, right? You know what I'm saying? Playing basketball over at, you know what I'm saying, over on a concrete court, playing with Allen Iverson, you know what I'm saying, and getting in fights with Michael Vick. I remember all of that stuff. Then I said, why am I this way? Then it came down to that first conversation. Hey, Tony, you want to come up here and play with me? I got He-Mans. While my sister is sitting on the lady's lap, she goes, "Oh, baby, going up there. You know what I'm saying? He's going, you can play He-Man up there with him." Yeah, I remember.
Mm. I
I
feel so
remember what
bad
happened.
for that young, you know. I feel so
Yeah,
bad for the child in
I
you.
had to go back and remember all of that, right? And I remember like it was yesterday. I remember the whole incident. Then I remember when it happened to me. I remember after that happened, I went and said, "Hey, this just happened to me."
Yeah.
And I remember what I was told. Boy, don't nobody do that to young boys. You need to learn how to be a good protector to your sister. You better stop lying.
Oh,
And then the family's like, "Oh man, you know how kids are, they always lying." You know what I'm saying? Like, you know that boy didn't do nothing. You've been knowing that boy since he was a little knee high from a grasshopper. But yet it was no surprise when he got busted. For the same,
okay.
yeah, you man, you know that kid has something wrong with him. So
Mhm.
what am I supposed to be mad at?
Right.
Right? So, and that's what I mean. I had to be real honest with myself, Joanne. In order for me to do what I do today, that's where it started. Because I wanted to do better, right?
Right.
I wanted to understand why I was the way
Right.
that I was,
Right.
right? And
Right.
I, and that's when everything was revealed. And you wake up from something like that after like a month of dreaming backwards in your life.
Mm.
And you wake up a different person after that, right?
Right.
Then you realize I have to protect this little one from the things that I had to endure.
That's right.
I had to be a better example.
Well, you know, there's something that I like to remind people that I work with of, and that is, I believe that we grow into the adult that we needed when we were children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is the goal.
The question is,
Hmm.
how do you know what you need?
You know, when you look back, yeah, I mean, I do like parts work and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there are these sort of, sometimes there's a part of you that's making a lot of noise. You
Yeah.
know, it's just like it's really scared, it's really mad, it's really loud. You know, it's anxiety, it's depression, it's big, it's so big, it's on the front of the stage. It is on the front of the stage. And the sort of wise adult part of ourselves needs to say, hey, what's going on?
Uh-huh.
That's like, you were right. And what we want to do is be like, shut up, stop screaming, which
Uh-huh.
never works for anyone ever.
No.
And what we need to do from the adult that we needed, right? That part of us needs to say, are you okay? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And then the part, if you get
That's
this
key.
time, if you are open and curious to the message, right, that this child has, right? I sort of, it's a child. So the first thing it's going to do is be like, "Ah, la, 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 da, la, da, la," and you're like, okay, okay, hang on. And the more it talks and the more you listen, the more you hear and the calmer it gets.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to drag a child kicking and screaming. We need to get down and look it in the eyes and say, what just happened? Why are you scared?
Right.
What just,
Or
yeah,
I'm going to add to that because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
yeah,
Right.
it's kind of great, right?
Yeah. And now here's another thing to add to that, right? Because what I did when I approached that little boy, beaten and battered and not not knowing who he was,
Yeah,
I realized that that little kid was willing to kill me to protect himself.
that's right.
He was willing to kill the adult me to protect himself. So I went to him,
Protect his
and that kid was,
wounds.
yeah, that kid
Yes.
was f***ed up. And I looked at him. I said, "If you want to fight, we can." That little kid said, "Stay away from me. You don't know me. You don't know what I. But you don't know me." And I looked at the little kid. I said, "You're right. I don't know you."
But I am you.
But you can't say that to the kid right off the bat, right? Because that kid ain't trying to listen to that part
Well,
of
they
you.
can't even see you at first,
It
right?
don't
It's
even,
just,
don't even know, right? It don't even know that you are him or her. It doesn't know that. So guess what? Now you got to sit down. Like when that little kid said, when my little kid in me said, you're not going to hurt me." I said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. And if anybody does try to hurt you, I'm here with you." And that little kid now is looking at you like, "You don't even know me.
why would you protect me?
Why would you try to
Nobody
protect me?"
protects me. Yeah.
Right? And so now I have to go back and visit this kid over a period of time. And then when that little kid breaks down, I'm like, "Man, come here. Can I just give you a hug?" And that little kid's gonna look at me and go, "I don't know you. Don't touch me. What you gonna do? You gonna do what this dude did to me over here? No, don't touch me." So you know what I did? I said, "All right. In order for me to get through to this kid,
Mm-hmm.
hey, little man, I got some boxing gloves. Let's go at it. Let's go at it."
Mm-hmm.
And the first time that little kid get the taste of beating you up and things like that, he's gonna, "Yeah, I told you. Yeah, now I got you now." See, I just used what was already there in order to open up the doors to have this. Man, yeah, you're right. You're good, man. You're good. So the next time that you whoop up on me and things like that, I'm gonna get a little bit closer to you. And then finally, that little kid thinks to himself, "Oh man, that's pretty cool. I just got the chance to beat up on this kid. He got a certain confidence about him. Now I can sit down with him. Now here comes the real work.
Mm.
Here comes the real work. And I ain't gonna show up with boxing gloves anymore. I'm showing up with snacks. Hey man, would you like some cookies?
What's it, goldfish crackers? Yeah.
Would you like cookies? Would you like a drink of my Pepsi? Yeah, huh? Would you? Because I want to share these with you, right? And
Yeah.
that little kid starts to look at you because now you're starting to earn trust with that young one,
Yeah.
right? And then next thing you know, that little young one begins to look up to you and go, "You really wasn't going to leave me," right?
Yeah.
So now you earn trust with them. And that's where, having these conversations is, I want that for everyone that we come across. Earn trust. That's the hardest thing that you will ever do when you've been abused and, you know what I'm saying? And you had to go through a lot of these things. The hardest thing that you would do or ever learn to trust yourself.
Yeah. And I also just have curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity, right?
We need to be curious about our voices and our angers and our history and not judging. We're so afraid to be judged for the things that have happened to us, but we are the one who is our harshest judge.
Oh, yeah.
We are
We
so
teach
very
ourselves
hard
to
on
judge
ourselves.
the most.
Yeah,
Yeah, we judge ourselves the most harshest
sure.
because of the things that we've had to go through.
Yeah.
How you doing? Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Um, and you know, I got another appointment directly after this, and I wish I could talk
Awesome.
a little bit. There's so much more that we could talk about, and hopefully
There's
we
so
do get
much.
the opportunity to do this again.
I
You
would
know what
love.
I'm saying?
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, Joanne, I want to say thank you so much for coming up here and diving so deep into these topics and things like that. I can't wait to do it. And again, I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty passionate about them. Like I said, no, it's a whole thing. I know.
I know it's a whole thing.
I am not that collected therapist, right? I am like, I know, it hurts. Oh my God, it sucks.
Right. And so, I got two more questions for you. First question is, how can people find you?
I think I sent you a link to my website.
I know where it is. It's in the YouTube thing, but I want you to tell people where they can find you now.
I have, I'm terrible at knowing my own addresses of things. I'm going to be honest with you. No, I'm the worst. Okay, so I have a YouTube channel. Okay, Lord, I'm just going to take up the rest of our time together doing this. I have a website, which is joanne.mackie.lmhc. And there's a lot of psychoeducation on there, some of my own stuff, some of how I help. I got a couple of YouTubes, which is Joanne Mackie trauma specialist. I'm sorry. I'm on Insta. Don't look at my threads. My threads is where I have all my, the world that we live in today thoughts. So,
yeah.
Hang on, that's three. I am, I'm sort of, here and there, but, Instagram is a good place to see things that I put up. And my blogs, I put up blogs on my website. And, this is the job of my life. This is the work of my life. And I love it.
I can tell. And again, I can't wait. I love speaking with you. One last question before I let you go.
Yes.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
I do have a superpower.
Okay.
Hypervigilance gives us the superpower spidey senses of knowing what people feel like. Trauma, when somebody walks in the room and you're like, right? You can feel like somebody's in a bad mood. Our trauma has this spidey sense because we've been hypervigilant since we were children, and we need to know what people feel like and if we're safe. So I'm going to say I like my spidey senses tingling, and I think you probably have those too. And I think maybe a lot of your listeners have spidey senses that they do.
I definitely understand that. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing that. I'm messaging about other person over here.
Go. It has been an absolute honor. Thank you.
Yes, most definitely. See, it really. I'm trying to get people to understand. Like when I do podcasts, don't schedule right behind that. Don't do that.
Well, who knew, right? Who knew that we would take 59 minutes? So,
and you know what? If you've seen my podcast, you know that it does go that. It does good. It does that. And then some, right? You know what I'm saying? Because conversations are so good. And with that being said, again, thank you again, Joanne, for allowing me to be a part of your world in this journey and have this conversation with you. For everyone else who has been tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in. I see you guys on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all of the wonderful places and things like that. Thank you for allowing me to keep bringing these conversations with you. Joanne's information is in the YouTube link below. So if you want to remember it with her, she just can't remember, but I got it. She didn't know it. I got it all sitting down there. Right, guys, go check her out, please, and tell her Tony sent you. And with that being said, guys, we're going to close out this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. We're going to see you guys in the next one. And if you didn't get the chance to see the live stream, do me a favor. Catch it, go back and check it out on the channel. And again, thank you guys for allowing me to keep doing this. Thank you for your support, Joanne. I gave you the YouTube link and everything, so if you share it around, let me know what I can do to always support you in whatever you do.
Ditto, friend.
There you go.
Okay.
You got to live for life now. You got to live for life now. For everyone else, guys, we're going to close out this episode. I love you, and we're going to see you guys in the next one. Have an amazing day. Peace.
Bye.